The coronavirus pandemic has devastated industries and livelihoods across America, and tourism is unfortunately no exception. Some states are hit harder than others. Almost 8% of all U.S. tourism jobs are found in Colorado, with a population of less than 6 million. And in 2018, Michigan was visited by 125 million people who spent more than $25 billion on leisure activities that have now been severely scaled back by the pandemic. Covering each of these critical campaign states are our CBS 2020 campaign reporters, Cara, Korte, and Adam Brewster. Cara, let's go ahead and start with you. In Colorado, an unexpected problem is that some businesses say they can't find enough seasonal workers to hire. Tell us more about that.
That's right, Lana. As you noted, tourism is a huge industry in Colorado, and I think what everyone thinks about when they think of the state are the natural wonders and the beauty that you can experience when you go there, and therein lies the prominence of seasonal work in Colorado. I spoke to one young man who's 23, Stephen Moss. He works as a lead climbing guide in the summer in Estes Park, Colorado, and in the winter he works as ski patrol in Crested Butte, and that's just one small example of how people kind of nomadically thrive in this seasonal worker lifestyle. And it is a lifestyle, Lana. People like Stephen live in their cars that are outfitted with beds in the back so that they're able to be nomadic, or they live communally, or their work pays for them to live on campgrounds or in apartment buildings. It is a huge part of what makes this seasonal workforce run in Colorado. Someone like Stephen has been very fortunate. His employee kept him on payroll even though Colorado shut down in March and just opened up back this past month, so he stayed on payroll. But many of these seasonal workers don't make a lot of money. It's kind of the con of the pro that so many of the pros that come with that lifestyle. The con is that you're not making a lot of money, you're probably not a salaried employee, and you're paid by the hour. I spoke to one owner of the Aspen whitewater rafting business in Aspen, Colorado, who told me that a lot of his staff that he hired in March, he can't get back now because they're making more on unemployment benefits than what he can pay them. This man usually employs more than 30 people any given summer, and now he only has 17. He also told me, Lana, that he has had job postings up for weeks now and has not had one person contact him about getting work because so many of these employees and potential workers, you can't blame them, are making more off unemployment than what an employer would be able to pay them.
Over to you in Michigan. I'm wondering if those business owners are having the same problems as the Colorado business owners, and also are they just feeling extra pressure for a strong summer season because how the pandemic has hurt them economically earlier in the year?
Right, so some business owners I spoke to echoed some of those problems of being able to hire enough workers. They say they have greater demand than they're able to fill right now, but they just aren't able to find the people to fill them right now. Now, others I spoke with haven't been able to hire the amount of staff that they normally would by this time of the year just because the demand hasn't been as great. I spoke to a hotel owner up in the upper part of the northern Upper Peninsula who said that she just doesn't have the capacity to hire the amount of people she normally would at this time of year. But to answer your question about pressure, yes, many of them are. June through September are when many of these businesses, hotels, restaurants, leisure activities, gift shops, those sort of places make 50, 60, 70% of their money. These are critical months for them. And Michigan, opened up later than many other states. So some businesses got off to a later start than they might normally would. If you think of Memorial Day as the traditional kickoff, some parts of the state were able to open by that point, others a few weeks after that, but there's still restrictions, things like capacity at restaurants that limit the ability to dig out of the hole that many businesses say they got in during the time when they had to shut down, saying they are behind pace of where they would normally be at this time of the year. And for many of them that I spoke with, the word this year is survival. The Vice President of Travel Michigan, the state's tourism group, said, this is not a year to thrive. This is a year for our businesses to get by and to survive. And the businesses I spoke to said they are determined to do that. They are determined to make it through to next year, hopeful that there will be a vaccine before next summer, and that next summer could be a boom season for them. But at this point of the year, many of them are unsure exactly what lies ahead.
Yeah. Cara, I'm wondering about as domestic travel has opened up in some places and some domestic tourism is happening, there still isn't that international tourism that we normally see in the United States during the summer. How much are the lack of international visitors hurting the industry there?
It could be a huge problem in Colorado, Lana. The state tourism office there put out their 2018 numbers and said that an international overseas traveler coming into Colorado will spend about $2,500 per person per trip. That's a lot of money. Someone from the United States, Canada, or Mexico is only spending about $775 in the state. So they get a lot of their profit from international travelers, and that's because Colorado, especially in the wintertime, for their skiing, for their restaurants, have world-class amenities for people. I spoke to a man named Caleb Sample who works for Aspen Ski Company, which is this big conglomerate in Aspen which controls multiple ski complexes, resorts, hotels, and restaurants there. And Caleb is responsible for, at peak wintertime, 4,500 employees across Aspen. And he told me that what he is really worried about, besides international travel, is just the complete unknown. It's what Adam was talking about. If there's no vaccine, we have no idea what seasons forward look like. Caleb told me, what's the worst case scenario? We're at 50% capacity, we're at 30, possibly even 0% capacity. They just have no idea what's coming for them. And someone like Caleb, who's responsible for hiring all these people, doesn't really know how to move forward, because ordinarily he knows how many heads he has to fill for any given season, and now he just doesn't know how many guests are going to be coming to Aspen, how many travelers, so then he can't know how many people to employ. So it's kind of this waiting game, waiting for another shoe to drop in Colorado.
Cara, that's very interesting. I hadn't really been thinking about the tourism industry in Colorado being so heavily focused on skiing, and the wintertime, it potentially gives those business owners some additional hope that maybe doesn't exist for the business owners that you've been talking to, Adam, in Michigan. I'm wondering how they feel about how local leadership has been doing in terms of addressing concerns of the tourism industry.
So some said that, that one of the things that they point to is Michigan has had a requirement for people to wear masks indoors, and that is something that the pressure has fallen on businesses to enforce. And yesterday the governor said, businesses who do not enforce this mask requirement may have their licenses temporarily suspended, which puts more pressure on businesses to do it. Now, it does give the business the ability to say, hey, this is coming from the governor, this isn't from us. But a lot of them talked about, the importance of masks and safety, because every business there in all of these small tourism towns, many of them talked about they don't want anything to do with coronavirus. I spoke to a woman, Heidi Gesikowski, who owns a restaurant in South Haven, Michigan, who said she'd be financially devastated if one of her employees tested positive. And all of these businesses are taking many, many safety precautions. But the uncertainty that I touched on earlier, and Cara mentioned there, the planning, the ski seasons in Colorado, even these business owners in Michigan, Brian Ulbrich, who owns a wine and cider company up in Traverse City, a big tourism spot up in Michigan, said he just doesn't know even in July if his revenue is going to be down 50, 60, 70%. And the uncertainty that lies ahead, he said, is enough to kind of keep you awake at night and give you nausea during the day. So many of them, have talked about that feeling of uncertainty and that desire for, more help in enforcing some of the safety requirements that they know will help keep them open. They are not blind to what has happened in Texas, in Arizona, and in Florida, where there's been a spike in cases. There's been some rollbacks. Even in Michigan, the lower part of the state, bars had to stop indoor service after an outbreak tied to more than 100 cases at a single bar in East Lansing, Michigan. They are aware of how quickly this can pop up, and they don't want their name to be attached to something like that and what happened there. And what a rollback would do, most said, I don't even want to think about what a rollback of regulations would do, and said, I would just have to figure out a way to make it through to next year.
All right, Adam Brewster, Cara Korte, thank you both for joining us.